back to my channel. So today I am so excited to be doing this video because we are going to be talking about Sherri Papini. Now, this case has been floating around for the past few years, and we just recently found out that Sherri has been arrested for her kidnapping that happened in 2016. She went missing and was found 3 weeks later on the side of the road. She was all beat up, she was bruised, she had chains all over her body, and she was dazed and confused. If this sounds interesting to you and you want to find out what happened, then just keep watching. During the time in this case, Sherri Papini was 34 years old. She grew up in a normal household, she had a normal life, and in the 7th grade, she would meet her future husband named Keith Papini. Sherri and Keith dated on and off for a few years, and then they eventually decided to call it quits. After this, Sherri met a man. She married him in her early 20s, and then not too long after that, the marriage wasn't working out, so they decided to separate. After her separation, she realized that she wanted to be with Keith again. They still had feelings for each other. They wanted to try this dating thing out again. So Sherri ended up moving in with Keith in 2009 to Redding, California. Sherri was living with Keith when she got officially divorced from her previous husband, and right after, her and Keith got married. Everyone thought that they were perfect together and that they were a perfect couple. Everyone around them wanted to have their relationship because their relationship seemed just so perfect and so amazing. You know, the family that has like the white picket fence, and then they have the kids and they have the dog. That's basically what Keith and Sherri were. So after they got married, they had 2 kids. Keith was working at Best Buy and Sherri was a stay-at-home mom. Everyone described Sherri as being the perfect mother. She was very devoted to her kids. She was at every practice, every game. She made amazing meals. She made amazing pies. They said that the pie she would make would look like it came out of a magazine. It was perfect. Everyone described her as being a supermom and that she took very good care of her kids. So on November 2nd, 2016, it was a typical normal day. Sherri and Keith had gotten up. Keith had said his goodbyes and then went off to work. Sherri had took the kids and dropped them off to daycare, and then she came back home and went about her normal day. There is this bird that will not stop chirping. Now he's chirping with another bird. So the birds are just chirping, but I'm trying to get this video finished, so I'm just gonna continue going. 11 a.m. Sherri had texted Keith and asked him if he was going to come home for lunch. Keith said no, so Sherri decided to go about her normal typical day. Sherri had just started training for like a Thanksgiving charity run or something like that. So she would go and run every day. There was a trail that was about a mile away from her house, and she would go over there for her runs every morning. Sherri says while she was on her run, like she does every day, she was running, then out of nowhere, her vision was obstructed by something being thrown over her head. She said that 2 people had grabbed her, threatened her with a gun, and then threw her into the trunk of a car. After this happened, Keith had come home from a long day of work. He opened the door, he walked inside the house, and he wasn't greeted by his children or his wife like he normally was. He was used to them running up to him, just being so excited, saying, "Daddy, daddy, daddy," and just hugging him and just giving him like all the shine in the world. But this day when he walked through the door, they weren't there.
Specialist, he expects his usual boisterous welcome from wife Sherri and the kids.
I pulled up, I saw our car there, and I opened the door expecting my son comes 100 miles an hour right at me, and then usually Violet right behind him. We do what we call, our family snuggles.
He started looking around the house to see maybe if they were in the house. He was opening all the doors to all the rooms to see maybe they're in here, maybe they're in here, maybe they're outside. And after searching the house and not finding them, he was a little worried, but he didn't want to freak out too much. Keith decided to go on the Find My Friends app to see where Sherri's phone was. And if he found Sherri, then Sherri would probably be with the kids. So he looks at the app and saw that Sherri's phone was by their mailboxes, which was a mile away from their residence. Now, this is by where the trail is that Sherri would jog on every day. So Keith gets into his car, he drives over there, and he looks around and he doesn't see them. He's like, okay, this is strange. It says that she's here, so where is she? So he gets out the car, he's looking, he doesn't see her. So he's like, okay, let me call my mom. So he calls his mom, he asks her, have you seen Sherri? And his mom's like, no, I haven't seen her. He was like, have you talked to Sherri? She was like, no, I haven't talked to Sherri. He was like, okay. He hangs up, he calls the daycare where Sherri dropped their kids off at. So he calls and he's like, hey, what time does Sherri come and pick up the kids? And then the daycare worker says, your kids are still here. Sherri never picked them up. Now this is when he started to freak out because Sherri would never do anything like that. Sherri was a devoted mom. She was always on time. She was all about her kids. And the fact that their kids were still left there, he knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. So after this phone call, he hangs up the phone. He starts to look around for Sherri. He walks around a little bit and then he sees Sherri's phone on the ground with her headphones wrapped around neatly, sitting right there. He's like, what in the world? What's going on? So he took 2 pictures of her phone placed right there, just in case it could be a crime scene or something like that. He was thinking ahead. So he took 2 pictures of it and then he called 911.
911, what is your emergency? CHP transfer. Keith is on the line. Hello, can I help you?
Hello? Yeah, so I just got home from work, and my wife wasn't there, which is unusual, and my kids should have been there by now from, like, daycare. So I was like, oh, maybe she went on a walk. I couldn't find her, so I called the daycare to see what time she picked up the kids. The kids were never picked up, so I got freaked out, so I hit, like, the Find My iPhone app thing, and it said that it showed her phone, like, at our end of our driveway. We don't have really good service.
Okay.
Not the end of our driveway, but the end of our street. So I just drove down there, and I saw her phone with her headphones because she started running again. And I found her phone, and it's got, like, hair ripped out of it, like, in the headphones. So I'm, like, totally freaking out, thinking, like, somebody,
okay,
grabbed her.
Okay, what's your address?
Redding.
Okay, what's your last name?
Yes. Papini, P-A-P-I-N-I.
And your first name?
Keith.
K-E-I-T-H?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go pick up your children?
No, I'm going to call my mom and have her do it.
Okay. What's your wife's name?
I'm going to, like, knock on every door. Sherri, S-H-E-R-R-I.
And same last name?
Yes.
She white, female?
Yes.
What's her date of birth?
It is June 11th, 1982.
Is her vehicle there, or does she not have a vehicle?
She has a vehicle that's at the house.
Okay, the vehicle is at the house?
She's running.
How? Okay.
Yes, I'm in it right now driving, and I took a picture of her phone on the ground before I picked it up.
Okay, how tall is she?
5'3", 5'4".
How much does she weigh?
100 pounds.
Eye color?
Like a bluish blue.
Okay, hair color?
Blonde.
Do you know what she was wearing? Is there
No
something
idea.
she always wears?
I'm assuming she went running, so
Okay,
probably
there-
running athletic type clothes.
Okay, there's not an outfit she always wears or anything like that. Does she run with a dog or by herself?
By herself.
When's the last time you heard from her?
She sent me a text asking me if I was coming home for lunch.
What time was
She's got a
that?
whole bunch of mixed. She sent me a text at 10:47 asking me if I was coming home from lunch from work. And I said, sorry, long day. And that was the last. Never spoke to her on the phone, never any other contact.
Okay, and what time are the kids supposed to be picked up?
Way before 5:30. She usually goes at like 4:45. Telling me that something happened to her is the way I'm looking at it. Then there was hair like in the headphones. Like it got ripped off or like they grabbed.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know
That's
you're
okay.
trying to keep me calm, but obviously.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The police came and started a search for Sherri. The community also got involved and helped in the search. This made national news.
Circumstances.
Within hours of Keith's 911 call, deputies are searching for Sherri. They soon get reinforcements, friends, neighbors, and complete strangers lining up to help.
We're just using a map and we're doing some grid searches.
The longer that someone's missing, that's a very critical time within the first, 24 hours.
From rushing creeks to culverts choked with brush.
Everyone believed that Sherri had been abducted by kidnappers. Keith went onto the news and begged and pleaded for his wife's safe return. He was visibly shaken, visibly upset. He couldn't control his emotions. He just really, really, really wanted his wife back. In this search, the local police were involved and the FBI, and they were all working together to find Sherri. Hours, days, and weeks had gone by in the search for Sherri. Like I said, this was a massive search. Everybody was out looking for her. There were absolutely no signs of what happened to her. There were no witnesses. There was no evidence. It was just, there was nothing. They had nothing. They did not know where Sherri was. There were dogs and helicopters that were also looking for Sherri, and they came up with nothing. The police said that they had gotten around 500 tips, and all of them panned out to be nothing. Keith had set up his own investigation team with his friends and family because he believed that the police were not doing enough. He believed that they weren't trying that hard to look for his wife. He also set up a GoFundMe account so he could hire a private detective to help in the search for his wife. Since nothing was coming up in the investigation and Keith was causing friction with the police over his wife's investigation, the police started to consider Keith as a suspect. They thought that he might have a part in his wife's disappearance, and they were also suspicious about the way the phone was found on the ground. The phone was placed down with the headphones neatly wrapped. They decided to question Keith and ask him if he would take a lie detector test, and he said absolutely. He took the test and he passed. So because of this, police figured that he wasn't a suspect, and they thought that he was genuinely upset about his wife and that he really didn't know what happened to her. After Keith's appearances on TV, an individual saw how upset Keith was and he wanted to help, so he decided to make a $50,000 donation anonymously to the kidnappers for Sherri's safe return.
How did you first hear about the Sherri Papini case?
Just visiting town and turned on the television and was watching the news and watching Sherri's husband Keith crying, saying, "We're gonna find you, baby."
The mystery man in the shadows is a wealthy entrepreneur, actually famous in the business world. Why do you want to remain anonymous?
Number one is for the safety of my family. And this has never been about me. I've had all the recognition in life one man could ever want, and I don't need any more.
Did you know Sherri?
Never heard of her before.
Did you know Keith?
Never heard of him either.
So you just walked into this?
Yeah.
Why?
It seemed to me that, you know, here's a girl that, you know, has got 2 little kids and got a husband at home crying, and I just visualized what that life was like and felt like, you know, let's see if we can be creative here.
This anonymous guy ended up meeting with a man named Cameron Gamble, who is a captivity survival expert. He travels all over the world to aid in kidnappings where people are held hostage. Keith, Cameron, and the anonymous donor came together and decided to make Cameron the face to talk to the kidnappers and give their demands for the reward. Cameron made a YouTube video to the kidnappers and he said, "No questions asked, just bring her home within a 100-hour deadline and you can have the money." After this deadline was up, nothing came of it. Since nothing came of this, they made another video to the public saying that if they can help bring her home, then they could have the reward. It did not matter if you were a criminal, it didn't matter if you were a lawyer, it didn't matter if you were a teacher, it didn't matter who you were, what you did, nothing. If you could bring her home, you would have the money. On November 23rd, 2016, the anonymous donor decided to double the reward to $100,000 for anyone that could bring Sherri home. The next morning, a woman and her daughter were driving along a road and they saw a woman frantically flagging down cars for them to pull over. The woman appeared disheveled and dirty. The woman that was in the car driving, she decided just to pull over on the side of the road and call 911.
Sutton happens to be driving down I-5 North, one of millions of Americans on the road to visit family for Thanksgiving.
I was in the right-hand lane and I saw a woman frantically waving what looked like a shirt trying to flag somebody down. She had like a wide-eyed, panicked kind of look. I was startled to see her. It was dark and she pretty much just came out of nowhere. If I had swerved to the right at least a little bit, I would have hit her with my car. I figured if she was willing to risk being hit by a car trying to get somebody's attention, that she must really need some help. I pulled off and I dialed 911.
911 emergency.
The police showed up shortly after and realized that this woman was Sherri. She was found over 150 miles away from her home. She was covered in dry blood, bruises. She had a slightly broken nose. She had a chain that was around her waist that was about a 1/4 inch thick. She had zip ties connected to the chain that was connected to her wrist. She had bounds on her ankles and she was severely underweight.
Rescue workers raced to the scene, the silence of the early morning now filling with sirens and the crackle of radio chatter.
Attention Station 8. Unknown medical problem.
It's going to be northbound I-5. Female needs medical attention. She is heavily battered. It's going to be some sort of an assault.
Sherri described how she ran around trying to get help. She went to a church, but the church was locked. She went to a nearby house, but they didn't answer the door. So that's when she went to the street and started to flag people down. Many people had passed her up because of the way she looked. I mean, she had bruises, dirt over her. She had those chains and shackles and stuff. And she was afraid that people would think that she just escaped from jail.
In a bed, in her poor face. And I just hugged her, I just held her. I felt like I hugged her for like 20 minutes. I was so happy that she was there, and I was just kissing her all over, and then I got like nauseated just looking at her. It was so hard for me to see her like that.
Shortly after, she was taken to the hospital, and the police tried to talk to her to find out what happened to her and where she was, but she was so shaken up that she wasn't able to recount what happened or really even talk. She was just too upset to talk about what happened to her. When she finally told her story, she couldn't remember what happened due to the trauma. She could only remember bits and pieces here and there. This actually happened over a few months where she could not fully recount the whole event. Her body showed that she had multiple bruises that happened for over a few days. She had also lost 15% of her body weight, which made her 87 pounds. She had deep gashes into the back of her neck. She had a branding on her right shoulder, and she also had all of her hair chopped off.
Keith, a couple of times you said her face, her poor face. Yeah. What did you see?
The bruises were just intense, the bumps from, you know, being hit and kicked and whatever else. Everybody gets a bruise once in a while, but not these types. I mean, these were hard to look at. Her hair, she's always had very long blonde hair. You know, they chopped it off.
I just need to know, because I was worried that when you first said her face, that they didn't brand her face, right?
I will say that no, it's not on her face, no.
Sherri said that 2 Hispanic women had kidnapped her. She said that most of the time they spoke Spanish, she really didn't understand what they were saying, and they also had their faces covered. But she said at some point that she did get to see their faces, and she described them as one being older and having straight dark hair and bushy eyebrows, the other one being younger and having curly hair, thin eyebrows, and earrings. She said that they held her in a dirty cell and that she had been beaten over and over and over again, and that she was starved and that she was chained throughout the entire time, the whole 3 weeks. She also said that she had fought back against one woman and she ended up slamming her head into the toilet, the other woman's head into the toilet, and that in that process Sherri had ended up cutting her foot, which left her with an injured foot. She says she doesn't know why she was released. She said that she just heard arguing and a gunshot, and then they just put her into the car and then dropped her off on the side of the county road. These kidnappers that Sherri described have never been caught. Also, the police and the public were very suspicious about Sherri's story because it didn't make any sense why she was released where she was, and the fact that she couldn't recall what happened to her. There also wasn't any evidence of her foot being injured. And after this, she wouldn't talk about her story to anybody, and she has never made any public appearances. The police released a sketch of the kidnappers 11 months after Sherri was found. The police looked into a bunch of different suspects, but they could not find anybody that had any reason to kidnap Sherri. They served search warrants, they looked into bank records, they checked social media, and they found absolutely nothing. The police also released that they had collected male and female DNA that was found on Sherri. The police also wanted the public to know that Sherri was having a texting relationship with a male for a while before her disappearance, and right before she disappeared, the texting stopped between them. Now, the DNA that was found on Sherri has not been matched to anybody in the system, so we don't know who the DNA is matched to, and it hasn't been matched to Keith or her family and friends. This information gave many people doubts that her story was even true. Many people were thinking that this wasn't even a kidnapping, that this was a hoax. They think that she made it all up because, like I said before, her story did not make sense. People think that Sherri was having an affair, so she made up this hoax so she could run away and be with the person she really wanted to be with. But once she was there, she realized that she didn't want to do it anymore and she wanted to come back home. You know how the saying goes, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Information started to come out about Sherri, about her past, and it was released that when she was a teenager, she had vandalized her home, she had stole money from her father, she was self-harming. They just wanted to show that she did have some type of a difficult past. So maybe she was showing this type of behavior before she committed this hoax. So on March 4th, 2022, just last Thursday, Sherri Papini was arrested. She was charged with making false statements to law enforcement and engaging in mail fraud. Police have released information to support these charges. She was charged with making false statements to law enforcement because in the affidavit it says that when Sherri said that she was being held by 2 Hispanic women, she was really staying with her ex-boyfriend. He lived about 600 miles away from Reading, and while she was staying there, she had put all those injuries onto herself and that no one else did it to her. She was also charged with engaging in mail fraud because she was reimbursed over $30,000 by the California's Victims Compensation Board for her therapy and for her ambulance ride to the hospital that night when she was found on the side of the county road. The mail charges carry a penalty for up to 20 years in prison, and the charge of lying to law enforcement carries a penalty for a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. The police have presented a bunch of evidence to support their charges. So here are some of the reasons why they said that the police had charged her with these crimes. They said that Sherri had been talking to an ex-boyfriend that she had dated 20 years ago. This is the guy they were referring to in the affidavit. I believe his name is James Reyes, but this hasn't been confirmed by the police yet. So on August 10th, 2020, the police interviewed the ex-boyfriend, James Reyes. The boyfriend said that Papini had told him that her husband was beating and that she was trying to escape from him. He had planned to help her out, so he wanted to make sure she was safe, so they planned this runaway together. He said that Papini had sent him a care package that included the location to where she wanted him to pick her up. He brought her to his home in Costa Mesa. The ex-boyfriend also said that she made him board up all the windows in his house so no one could see that she was inside. He also said that he slept on the couch while she slept in his bedroom. He said that Papini had chopped off all her hair herself and that she was purposely not eating or trying to lose weight. He also said that she had injured herself, including hitting herself, creating all those bruises, and burning herself on her arms. He said that she asked him to brand her right shoulder, so he went to a local Hobby Lobby and got a wood burning tool to create the branding on her right shoulder that we later found out she had. After a few weeks at staying with him in his house in Costa Mesa, she said that she missed her kids and that she wanted to go home. So she asked him to drop her off on the side of the county road, and he agreed and he dropped her off. And that's where she was seen running up and down the street like a lunatic, asking for help. So let's talk about some of the evidence that the police have. The police didn't release everything, but the police did release some things. And what they did release is that there was DNA on Sherri's underwear that linked through familiar search to a relative of the ex-boyfriend. We're talking about James here. Also, the ex-boyfriend's brother's social media pages, there was a table that matched a table that Sherri had described in 2017, saying that she was tied to and that they had put her on to brand her. So before, when I was talking about how there was a male and a female DNA found on Sherri's clothing and it didn't match anybody, they did not know about this ex-boyfriend at the time. So now they tested the DNA against his DNA and come to find out that the male DNA was a match to him. The police also said that the $50,000 she gained from the GoFundMe, she had used that to pay off her personal credit card debts. However, there have been no charges brought against her for that. The police also said that the search for her cost around $250,000 of taxpayers' money, but still there haven't been any charges for that either. As of last night, March 8th, Sherri has been released on a $120,000 bail. This is a federal case and we are waiting to see if she is going to take a plea deal or if she is going to bring this case to trial. She says she didn't do it and that she was actually kidnapped, so maybe she is going to bring this case to trial. We don't know. Some of the conditions of her release are surrendering her passports and firearms, restrict travel to Eastern California, and abstain from substances, no contact with witnesses, and she is ordered into a psychiatric program. Her next court date is on March 25th, and police did say that there are going to be more arrests regarding to this case.
And you say that one of the big problems here is the resources that were diverted to people from people who really needed them.
Yeah, and that is the big problem. There was a lot of time, effort, resources, money, multi-agencies coming together, putting forth this effort to try to, help a victim and solve a case that was tragic. Human trafficking is a real thing, and there are victims out there that need our help. Investigations are complex and budgets are tight. So when we put all that effort into such a case and find out that, things are not as they seemed and we've been deceived and law enforcement has been duped, it's really taxing on everybody.
So that is all I have for this case, guys. I know it was a lot, but I wanted to go through everything since we just got this new information of what came out just now. So that is all I have. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching. See you in the next video.